historic Washington House. We're so happy you're here tonight for this tribute to Romy Gosz. And so happy that his son Lloyd is here, our special guest. We thank the Mystic Moods for being here to play the music.
I want to start by saying, at one time I did a show here as a tribute to Al Jolson. I was an Al Jolson fan, and I sang Mammy, the sunshine's east, etc. And anyway, Walter Vogel was so, he really got this museum going. And when he was in charge here, he had me do so many things. I would play for tour groups that came through, and I did a lot of other things. They used to have a monthly meeting. I would do things there. So Walter and I became great friends, and I was so glad that he let me do that Al Jolson show. You know, I got more guts than brains. I have some pictures of me when I started out my career with the Howie Bowl Orchestra. I have some pictures of my mom and dad. I have my mom because she ran the ship and nobody knows it. They all think it was Romy Gosz, but it was my mom. Anyway, I want to introduce the band now, and I will start with the tuba player because we are called the rhythm section. And the tuba player is Gary Wardell, and he plays with the wind ensemble, and he's an ex-school teacher. I think he taught in college.
High school too.
High school and college. And then the drummer is Mike Johannick, and he is mucho talento. He's very talented. He plays the trumpet. He has the sweetest tone. And so that's, well, of course, I'm part of the rhythm section too. But I'm lucky these guys let me play with them because they're all so good. But anyway, starting over here, that guy there, wave your hand. His name is Wayne Hessel, but he's not related to the Hessels from Francis Crick, etc. But he's my favorite because I like to pick on people, and I only pick on people that I really, really like.
Thank you.
Next to him is Don Conop. Now, Virgil Petzka started this band, and we run it now as a co-op, but Don Conop is really in charge. And if somebody doesn't show up to play, he gets somebody to fill in. And I'm always there because I'm afraid if I miss a day, they'll find somebody else. Next to him is Phil Stengel, and Phil directed the municipal band for a while. He plays with the Sugar Bush Boys. I forgot to mention that Wayne also plays with the Sugar Bush Boys. And so then last but not least is Ray Bears. And Ray comes from a very talented family. He has children that are very talented. And he played with my brother's band for a while. My brothers, I have two older brothers, Tony and Tommy. For a while they played together as a band called the Goslings. Well, there are two different people. Tony is a serious, quiet person. Tommy, on the other hand, liked to have a little fun. Tommy taught me dirty jokes. He taught me funny little lewd lyrics of little songs. And one of my cousins said, Lloyd, if it wasn't for Tommy, you'd probably be a pope or a bishop or a cardinal. Because I was a naughty boy, but I was kind of serious. And Tommy saved me from that. Now, I'm going to let the band take over, and they said, every once in a while, you have to get up and annoy the people, which I will do.
didn't look at my music. The first two
Oh, I got it. The first two polkas we're going to play are the Pilsen polka and musicians come and play. Was first recorded in Grafton, Wisconsin, and when the band came there, I guess I need to do this. When the band came to Grafton, the recording studio was set up, and the band sat down, and they said, "Who's going to lead this band?" Well, they never had a leader. My dad just lifted up the trumpet and started, and the guys followed along, and that's what they did. So they made these first two recordings in Grafton in 1930 under the Paul Gosz Orchestra name, because my dad wasn't old enough. Pilsen polka, musicians come and play. By the way, my dad wrote that polka.
Yes. So.
first waltz is called Behind the Blacksmith Shop, and the next one is Grandmother's Joy. Not always Grandpa either. The next polka is Decca Joe Polka, which my dad recorded in the late 30s, and the musical clock. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Yeah. Okay, we're doing Grandmother's Joy. with my dad recorded in about 1934, 35.
Red handkerchief in the B flat for me? Is it in B flat? It's in B flat for me?
Well, I'm going to sing a little waltz for you later on in Bohemian. I was raised in Plivka's Corners, Yaksimash, and Dubshay, yes, and I learned a few Bohemian words. Thank you so much. to tell you some stories. All right, the story of Romy Gosz. The story of Romy Gosz begins in Grims, Wisconsin. He was born in Grims, Wisconsin. My grandpa, Paul Gosz, was a superintendent at that lime kilns at Grims. Now, in Rockwood, we never had problems with fires, but it seems that Grims had all kinds of problems with fires. And you know, the kilns had to be kept really hot. And so there were long, long piles of lumber or short pieces of wood, maybe about this long. We had those in Rockwood, and they were very kind. I would often go to the wood piles and borrow some of the wood to make little forts and tree houses and things like that. But Grims seemed to have a problem with fires. Finally, in 1928, the whole blasted thing was destroyed by a fire. And before that, there had been several fires, and my grandpa Paul Gosz decided he had enough of that. So he moved to Rockwood. Now, Rockwood is derived from Rockwell Lime Company and Allwood Lime Company, therefore Rockwood. Now, the Allwood Company was started in 1913. It was owned by Miss Mary Squire and Dr. Jesse Carpenter, who was a well-known opera singer in Chicago. Mary died in 1936, and Jesse died in 1938. Now, when those two women were running the lime kilns, my grandpa was a superintendent and the foreman, and so he pretty much ran the show there and took care of everything. Now, as you know, in Rockwood and Rockwell, there were the Italians were running the place. And so most of the Italians hated my grandfather. He was a bossy man, you know, Goss's boss. And so as time went by, my dad broke with custom. In those olden days, I'm talking about 100 years ago, Germans married Germans. Irish married Irish, French married French, Catholics married Catholics, and Protestants married Protestants. But of course, sometimes they broke that mold. Think of Romeo and Juliet. Well, my dad found a pretty Italian girl by the name of Antonia Leggio, who came to this country as an immigrant. Oh my God. And she became a citizen during World War II in 1944. If any of you remember World War II, they did not just put the Japanese in camps, but they put Italian Americans and German Americans in camps. All you had to do was be a nasty neighbor and report them. But anyway, my dad married my mom and broke the mold. The Gosses weren't real happy. You know, years ago the Italians were really looked down on. And my mother and her brothers and sisters had all learned to speak English at school. There was no such thing as English as a second language. And they learned to speak English, and none of them had any trace of an accent. And all the other Italians that I knew that learned English in school never had a trace of an accent. But anyway, my dad and mom got married in 1929, and in October the market crashed. But my dad and mom, my mother had spent some time in Milwaukee with her cousins, the Gimos. I never knew her first name. We had just called her aunt, which in Italian is zia. Zia is aunt in Italian. So anyway, my mom lived there for a year and went to a business college. So when Mom and Dad got married, they opened a grocery shop in Allwood. Now I have to tell you, Allwood was a nice little village. Rockwell had all their houses, company houses, lined up along the road, which is now Rockwood Road, and there were about 15 of them. The other day I ran into a friend and he said, my dad was in charge of the mule that pulled the tram up to the top of the kilns and then dumped the stuff and then so on. But that was an interesting little story. Now, did I mention that Allwood had a blacksmith shop? It had a post office. It had a fire station. All of the houses, all of the company houses were nicely arranged, very beautiful. There were a lot of little areas with fiori of flowers, and it was so well kept. But my mom and Dad decided to open a grocery store. And my mom, who had that business college, ran the grocery store, and Dad went out playing. Now, my Grandpa Gosz was a man of many, many talents. I have some pictures of him with my dad playing his violin, but he also played drums. And people would often ask me, did you ever play with your dad in a band? And I said, when they did this 3-generation thing, my grandpa was playing drums, and he made a couple of mistakes. My dad stopped the song right in the middle and said to my grandpa, you can't play that. And so I thought, if he would yell at his own father, who was a stern, stubborn German, think of what he would do to me. Although, you know, when you're a musician and you ride in the band car, when I was 16, I became a driver all at once for the band and a ticket seller. And at the end of the evening, my dad would go and he would schmooze with the owner of the dance hall to try to get more jobs. And all the musicians were in the car. They would always say to me, Lloydie, that's what they called me in those days, Lloydie, you go in and you get him. He won't yell at you. And he never did. My dad had a public persona and a private persona. And so I knew him as a father, husband, and family man, as they say in Italian, la familia. So, so I went in and I got him out and so on. And then another time, he was playing a Bluestone, which was one of my favorite ballrooms. And I had been responsible for getting the cars repaired. I don't know why. I had 3 other brothers. But I was responsible for taking the cars in to get repaired. And so I took the car to a nice little mechanic in Kellnersville, and we took one of the other cars to the job in Bluestone. He was playing a double with Tiny Hill. Skirts, you flimsy skirts, you're the big attraction to me, which was a Tiny Hills number. But anyway, I forgot the damn trumpet in the car in the garage. My dad read me up and down one side and down the other. And then he said, you go get the trumpet, of course, which I had to go do. Tiny Hill was playing, so he was had some minutes. So he read me up and down, one side, the other, and then he turned to another person, and it was the jovial old, Romy Gosz persona. And I never forget that, because you sometimes have to separate your public persona from your private. Persona, of course, is the Italian word for person. I'm going to let the band take over again because I can see several people yawning. whenever I hear this song, I think of Dan Zahorik, who played piano and accordion with my dad. And Dan Zahorik would sing this song in Bohemian. And a lot of the people in Plivka's Corners who still spoke Bohemian said, you know, he put some dirty words in there. This one is called Annie's Waltz. You know that my dad had different names for some of these waltzes and polkas. My wife, who is not a musician at all, tells me we play the same polka over and over, we just change the names. sometimes when I play with another band, they'll say, let's play that one in Romy Gosz tempo, which meant very fast. And this one is one of the ones that he played very fast, and it was called Picnic in the Woods. I thought the band did an excellent job on that. And the next polka is called the No-No Polka. And I'm a words person, and I made up some words to this song. I sang, I like cowboys, I like cowboys, I don't want no girls around here. I like cowboys, I like cowboys, I don't want no girls around here. I made that up when I was about 7 or 8. was young, my brother George isn't here. And I said, I'm glad you're not coming because you'd fact check me. You know, you can grow up in a family and have two different memories. I have different memories than George does. He told me this story. Right next door, there was our house, another house, and then Procash's dance hall. And he tells me that at one time, my mother dressed us both in two little white suits, hand-me-downs from Tommy and Tony, and that we went to Procash's and we danced together. I was about 5 and he was 7. And we danced and he said, we brought down the house. I have absolutely no memory of that. No memory at all. So George and I have different memories. So in many ways, I'm glad he's not here. He's 90 years old, and until 2 years ago, he was playing organ at St. Anne's, which was our home church. And George did the cantering, the singing, and the organ playing. And they didn't really appreciate him, and at age 88, they pushed him out. But I played organ in so many places. I started out at St. Augustine and Reeves Mills. My piano teacher, Lydia Miller in Francis Crick, who was the priest cook, gave me a couple of lessons, and she said, Lloyd, they need an organist over at Reeves Mills. And I was so surprised because she picked me out of all her students. And so I went to Reeves Mills, and in those days, they had a low mass and a high mass. And all those masses at Reeves Mills were low mass. So I could just play hymns, which was just fine. And at the same time, I was playing with Howie Bowe's orchestra. You know, bands play until at least 1 o'clock. By the time I got home, it was 3 or 4 in the morning. And then I would have to go to church and play the organ. Did I tell you I got $1 a Sunday? And in 1948, 49, 50, that was big money. Yes, that was big money. So then my wife and I, after we got married, we've been married 60 years, just celebrated 60 years. So anyway, I played organ in so many churches. In Milwaukee area, I played in a church that, as long as it maintained a 10% Lithuanian population, they could go on because there were so many churches in that area. Then when I moved back here, I started playing at Sacred Heart Church. Well, they closed down Reeves Mills Church. They closed down Sacred Heart Church. Then I was playing at the United Church of Christ on Marshall Street. They closed that down. I'm beginning to think that I'm accursed. I played at several nightclubs which burned down. But anyway, I have to tell you that my dad was very supportive when I was playing. My dad and mom spoiled me a little bit. I was the baby of the family. You can be 88 years old and you're still going to be the baby of the family. So anyway, my dad always brought home little gifts because I had said to my mother at about age 5, Mom, what does Dad do for a living? And she said, he's a musician. I thought she said magician. And so for the next couple of years, or months, whatever, my dad brought home little magic tricks for us to do. When I was in high school, I played string bass in the orchestra. All at once, a string bass appeared in the living room. And I didn't ask him to buy it, but he would do things like that without asking. My dad loved to read Western novels, and they were hardcover Western novels. And I looked at them today, and he wrote inside the cover, property of Romy Gosz, not for lend. And then he would put the date that he bought the book and read it. I have some 35 of those books. When I was a child person, I liked to lay them out on the floor, like a little road. And I would run my little cars over that little road. Now you know, if I knew my dad was coming home, those books got back in the bookshelf so fast. You know that? And then my dad never disciplined us. He only raised his voice. He raised his voice, and we scattered like scared chickens. He never had to hit us. And my mom was Italian, and so Italians love children. They just love them, and they especially love male children. Did I tell you that my parents treated me a little special? First of all, I was a breech delivery. Secondly, I couldn't drink mother's milk. My Italian grandmother, mi nonno, figured out something with goat's milk, but I still was not well. My Aunt Anna, mi zia Anna, she told me I cried all the time. I don't know why I was crying, but I must have been hungry. And to this day, I'm still always hungry. I'm noted in relative circles as a big eater. Whenever there's a buffet, I'm always first in line. Somebody's got to be first. Now, I want to tell you how much I enjoy all these people dancing. I enjoy that so much. When I used to live in Rockwood and I would go to dances at Procash's, I just sat there. And you know, in those days, women wore dresses. I love to watch the dresses. And there's a song I always like, skirts, those flimsy skirts, they're the big attraction to me. Skirts, those flimsy skirts, what attraction they can be. Up around the ankles, down around the knees, boop, 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 and along comes a breeze. So I just love to do that. I'm going to try to get back to the piano, and there's a couple over here that told me my mom and dad took vacations with them. Well, you know, in the olden days, the Catholics had quite a grip on people. You did not dance during Advent. You did not get married during Advent. You did not dance during Lent. Das ist strictly verboten. And so these people were telling me that their parents, parents and grandparents would go on these trips with my mom and dad, either during Lent or Advent. And my Aunt Anna, mi zia, would take care of us. And she called my mother one day and she said, I've run out of money for food. And my mother said, you're not giving them all they can eat. My mother, remember, was an Italian immigrant, and she knew how to parse things out and feed things. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the piano. I'm having a little problems there with that microphone and a couple of problems seeing, but we're going to do it, and I love to watch you people dance. What is sometimes called the red handkerchief. My dad, I will sing it in Bohemian, but my dad wrote some different lyrics when he was on a deer hunting trip. And it had to do with leaving your wife home alone.
I sing it first time through. Really?
Not right away, though. Take the name first. Let's get some olives. You got that one?
All right, this first polka is called the Devotion Polka. Thank you. This next song is called the Barbara Polka. And when I was playing accordion, I would sing when I went to Urshkavitsky on Thanksgiving Day. But you know, that damn accordion has been gaining weight. It's gotten so heavy I can hardly lift it anymore. I don't know what it's been eating. Barbara Polka. Thank you so much. My dad recorded the Barbara Polka in 1948, and he had a trumpet player that he liked by the name of Clyde McCoy. And Clyde McCoy played that with a mute. He played different songs. So my dad recorded this polka with a mute, and it has a whole different sound. If you've ever listened to the recording that my dad made of the Barbara Polka, you know, sometimes a trumpet player would use a plunger instead of a regular type mute. You know, somebody told me a story once which they thought was terribly funny. My dad always raised the trumpet up in the air when he played, and he was playing a job one night, and some guy threw a pickle which landed inside the trumpet. That guy thought that was terribly funny, but I guess my dad didn't. An old favorite made famous by Frankie Yankovic. I have a picture of me playing along with Frank up here, and it's called the Blue Skirt Waltz.
Boy, we're going to sing this.
Right away?
Well, why don't you do it? Just going to sing it.
Okay.
call this one the Sailor's Waltz. I have to tell you stories about my family. My oldest brother was Anthony. His birth certificate says Antonio because my mother was still pretty Italian. She hadn't become fully Americanized yet. She always said to me in Italian, watch the Americans, listen and learn. And that's what she did. She watched the Americans, she listened, she learned. So anyway, starting with Tony. Tony was the quiet one in the family. He was the first grandson on both the Gosz and the Leggio side. For some reason, after 8th grade, he moved in with the Leggios. Now you know, since my grandpa was a supervisor and a foreman, he had the only house in Allwood that had running water and toilets. All the other people in the company houses had a path. And you know what was the end of that path? So anyway, Tony was the quiet one, and he moved in with my grandparents after 8th grade, which was fine. He went to service after high school and was stationed in Alaska. You know, Alaska was very, very important because, you know, Sarah Palin said she could see Russia from her front porch. She's got better eyesight than I have. So then my brother Tommy came along, and Tommy was the pretty one of the family when he was young. He was very good looking, and my dad had a nickname for him which I cannot tell you because it wouldn't be politically correct. But let me say that Tommy was dark. Tommy worked in a lot of farmers' fields when he was young and got to be very dark. My mother always avoided the sun because she knew that brown-skinned people weren't popular. So anyway, then my sister Ramona come along. Now some men are unsure of their masculinity and they're afraid of strong women. My mother was a strong woman, my sister Ramona was a strong woman. And people are afraid of strong women. I don't know why. But Ramona saved everything. I mean, she saved everything. I still have ration books from World War II. And she was the one that made money. I mean, everything she touched turned to gold. And she protected me from my brothers. My brothers would walk past me and punch me or pinch me. So it got to the point where whenever they walked past me, I would flinch even if they didn't pinch me or poke me. And so Ramona protected me from them. My brother George always said, well, she was a heifer. Meaning she was a big girl. When she was young, she grew up very fast. And Tommy was the older brother, and my dad was a musician, and that was it. He didn't repair anything around the house. And we had a stairway that was enclosed and it was dark. The light switch didn't work. Well, my dad, of course, couldn't fix that. So it was dark. So Ramona would have to lead Tommy and me and George up those steps because she was the brave one. She had, this woman had guts. My brother George was the really smart one. He got straight A's in school, and he was always teacher's pet. Then I came along, and guess who wasn't teacher's pet? In 3rd grade, I started to get a reputation as a naughty boy. One of my teachers once said to my sister Ramona, I can't believe that Lloyd's a teacher. He was so naughty. And then I had to go to Catholic school in 7th and 8th grade. And George said, wait till you get Sister DeCarmel. She'll straighten you out. The rumor was that there was a big crack in the chalkboard because Sister DeCarmel had slammed one of the big boys against that chalkboard and it cracked. So George said, wait till Sister DeCarmel gets a hold of you. Well, guess what? God was with me and Sister DeCarmel left. And a real nice nun came back in her place. Now, you know, as I mentioned, Ramona saved everything. She saved all of my dad's date books. And I wanted to look at 1936 when I was born. Wouldn't you know that's the one date book that isn't there? But the story is, I was born during a big snowstorm in 1936, February. And the story is that my dad was playing somewhere far away during this big blizzard, this big snowstorm. My mother delivered me. I was a breech delivery. My Italian grandmother and my aunt helped deliver me. And my dad finally came home. I was delivered at 8 at night. My dad came home at 8 in the morning after driving through that snowstorm. My mother, of course, had delivered me at 8 o'clock. My dad walked in the door. He drove through that snowstorm. God knows where he played that night. He fell into the room. Didn't quite close the door. My aunt and my mother pulled him into the floor and let him lay there. Because they couldn't lift him, you know. I have a picture of my dad when he was young. He was a nice, slim young man. Weren't we all? So anyway, I have something that I want to read to you. People come to me all the time and they tell me Romy Gosz stories. And some of them I know are true, and some of them I know aren't. But I never want to destroy anybody's illusions. If they want to think that, let them. Like once in a while they told me a story that at Kupch's, not Kupch's in Kellersville, but Kupch's in the Kiwani area, that my dad went there and put some goldfish in their toilet. Well, that was the type of thing he would do. Here's a letter somebody wrote me. My parents hired Romy Gosz to play at their wedding reception on May 6, 1950 at a ballroom located Highway 42 in Edwards. Well, I looked it up in the date book and it was really the hall in Cleveland, which was called whatever. And his dad told him this story. Romy would sometimes have to split his band because he was so popular. No, he wasn't a good bookkeeper. The arrangement my dad had made with Romy and the owner of the ballroom was that the ballroom would charge admission at the door, and they did that often at weddings, a bridal wedding or a wedding. They would charge admission at the door. Romy and the owner would get paid first. All excess profits would belong to my parents. On the evening of the reception, Romy showed up with his full band. So many guests arrived and danced to Romy's wonderful music that my parents had enough money to enjoy a beautiful honeymoon, and they traveled to California on US 66, take my Route 66. Also, a few friends who are about my age and grew up near Kiel remember that their parents liking Romy Gosz music as well. And so I often hear people, they tell me these stories, and I'm still glad to hear them. And this couple here just told me that story about my parents and their parents traveling together on vacation. So, you know, we're getting near the end of our program, and I want to thank you all for coming. When they told me they were going to charge $10, I said, polka people are so tight, you'll never get $10 out of them. Well, polka people are tight that come to a dance and then they don't drink. And that's what they don't like. I don't know if you looked at any of these posters. One of my favorite ones here is when he played at Shoto Gardens. The admission was 50 cents with a free lunch. I can't believe it. So anyway, again, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the band for coming too. You know, Wayne Hessel, every Wednesday drives from Green Bay to play with us guys. And you know, I just sit down and play the piano. Everything's set for me. They do treat me really nice. But Wayne drives from Green Bay every Wednesday to play for nothing. And you know, we're so lucky at the Manitowoc Senior Center. Sometimes we have as much as 6 people. That's why I can't believe you're all here tonight. Thank you. Good night. My mother thanks you. My father thanks you. And I thank you.
Go one step.
Yeah.
We're going to do the Tomcat Polka. It's a polka that my brother Tommy recorded in 1950 something. And in Bohemian it starts with Ya mandomo kotsura, ya selono, ya brokyora. Anyway, I don't know the rest.
What key? What key?
Last number.
Okay, Don Cunham, our fearful leader, says this is the last one. Thank you so much for coming. show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago, and it went right to my head. Wherever I may roam, on land, on sea, or foam, you will always hear me sing this song. Show me the way to